All right, Chairman, County Commissioner Court, come to order budget workshop, Tuesday, 10th day of August, 2021, scheduled for 1:30 p.m. It's now 1:40 p.m. We're right on schedule. We started 10 minutes late this morning, 10 minutes late this afternoon. We're doing good. All right, Sheriff's up first. Sheriff.
So Judge, first of all, let me just start by saying thanks for letting me slip in here and get back with y'all on a budget workshop. You and I had a conversation briefly last week and letting you know that our jail, and I know some of you have kept abreast. I've not kept you abreast of the latest. The captain on Mondays has kind of let me know where the status of the jail is, but since I knew we were going to be here, I thought I'd let him tell you what the status is. But there's no doubt we're at max capacity. And one thing for sure, you all have kind of realized as I've spoken over the years, 80 to 85% jail capacity is full because of classification and having too many of one classification, whether it's minimum, medium, or maximum. You can't, there's no way you'll ever have a perfect amount of to be able to have a full capacity, meaning 100%. So, but like when it comes to our female beds, because we only have 12 female beds, we're always at maximum capacity.
Are you 3X now with?
So, but what I thought I would do first off, Judge, is give you all a copy, because this will be very important to you all.
This is Thomas.
Yeah, leave one for Tom. These are the administrative rules to temporary detention facilities. All right, and they do have some very specific, they're pretty basic. They're pretty basic in the way of they're not that far off from running a jail. But one of the things that it does note is that you can only operate on a temporary facility up to, correct me if I'm wrong, 36 months. And then you have to submit them the plan of what your plan is to fix why they're going to grant you the 36-month temporary facility. And obviously, you know, the good part for you and I, Judge, is the jail commission knows that we've been looking at a jail. They you know, quite often when I see them at conferences, they're like, we started that jail yet. So I mean, they know that it's got to happen. And so this will not be a surprise to them if we try to do a temporary facility, because they've known for a number of years that we need something. So the only thing that I think that Todd and I are definitely going to have to work through with you is location. But for right now, I want Todd to kind of give you an idea of the status of where the jail is today.
Current count, total count is 137.
Turn it.
Yeah, do it. There you go.
Current total count is 137. We're housing 21 inmates in Galveston County. Our other counties that we have interlocal agreements with, which would be Jefferson County, Hardin County, Polk, and Liberty, none can take any of our overflow at this point. They're, in fact, most of those counties are contracting beds elsewhere as well, with the exception of Polk County. Liberty County is keeping a bunch at LaSalle and at Polk, and Hardin County is full. Jefferson County, of course, they contract with LaSalle as well for their overflow. So the only other county that's able to help us out is Galveston. When it comes to female beds, they have given us all they can give us, which is 50. They're unwilling to take any work this time. So unless their population shifts, which is unlikely, we're kind of stuck. Right now, we have 15 in Galveston females and 11 in-house. That puts us at 270% of maximum capacity and 325% of operational capacity. At any point, they can say, come get your inmates, and I have 12 hours to do it. Otherwise, they come. And we have one down there with a attempted capital murder charge and some other ones with serious charges as well. That being said, the only alternative we have is to mishouse inmates, house them on basically on floors or cots, and puts us out of compliance with the jail commission immediately. So that creates a problem. When that happens, then we'll be called before the jail commission to give a public testimony, and we have to come up with a solution that they're going to hold us to as far as time frames and things of that nature. Yes, sir.
Sure. I mean, is the courts, and I know the court's overwhelmed, courts, DAs, district judges? I mean, is there anything we can do to get some of these people out? Or these have to stay in there? I mean, what's the-
So here's what I would tell you.
I got two out last week, county court. So
Yeah.
me
so-
and the county attorney worked together to get those out.
Here's what I will tell you is that, Commissioner, this is not a new problem. So, right, so the district courts and the county courts have really tried to help us keep the jails down to a minimum. They've been doing it for years, really. And we're just in a little bit of a bind. So, yeah, we could probably help them get a couple, like the judge said, a couple out, but it's not changing our problem.
No, it's not.
And we're just gonna have to do something. And so y'all will know that during COVID, because I saw COVID as a emergency scenario and I didn't have a problem, and Todd just bent over backwards and continued to build relationships with other jail administrators, and I built relationships with other sheriffs. But it doesn't look like COVID's going away anytime soon, that's for sure. It is obviously the reinsurgence back. Todd's had a little bit of a run through the jail and with some of our employees. And so we're kind of at this point now where I got a feeling we're going to be living with this COVID or some kind of a pandemic issue for a while. We may be dealing with it for the next 5 years. I don't know. But what I know for sure is there are two things, and I've always kept a good relationship with Commissioner's Court, and I'm always gonna. But one of the things I know for sure is that Todd and I do a very good job of managing our jail, and we have been for many years. And we're at this point where I need you all to do your part. And that really is, I hate to say it, but we're at this point now where he and I have done all we know to do. The burden is gotta be shifted on y'all to figure out where you want me to take it. And let me tell you why. I've caught really some pretty heavy heat from some of our other jurisdictions, primarily Baytown. And I'm not upset with Baytown at all. They're upset with me because we've turned them away so many times. Well, I know what it's like to be a police officer and have a felon that you need to put in jail and no place to put him, or the sheriff's turning you down. Well, I'm done turning people down. It's becoming my political nightmare when I tell other law enforcement agencies, I'm not taking your prisoner anymore. And it's a guy that just pulled an armed robbery or whatever. They're coming to my jail. If we go out of compliance, we go out of compliance, because it's important for me that my role as sheriff is to provide for the city of Baytown, provide for the city of Mont Bellevue, provide for the highway patrol. And I mean, the highway patrol will tell you how frustrated they've been. We've always been able to try and take all their felons, but right now we're in those areas where we're having a difficult time taking felons. And the nightmare we have created, when I say we, I mean all of us. And I mean the entire judicial system we have created. Todd, what do we figure? How many? 1,500 to 1,800 warrants?
Yes, sir. Probably closer to
Because we have not been taking and arresting people and putting them in jail because of COVID. We've been getting warrants for them. Well, when's COVID going to end? So now we have, I'll bet we're probably pushing 2,000 warrants now that somehow we've got to serve. I mean, we're causing our own problem, and we wouldn't have this problem if we had the jail facilities. If that makes sense, because we would just be arresting them. So I hate to say it, but in so many ways, we're putting a huge backlog on the county court at law system and the district because of what I see her back there shaking her head. She knows we've got a nightmare ahead of us right now. And and we all know we're 3 years from getting to jail. If you all vote to do something today, which I know you're not, obviously that wouldn't be the responsible thing to do. But if you did, we're 3 years away from a permanent facility, and we're 1 year away from a temporary. We can't throw something up. We've been doing a lot of research, and most of them say minimum 9 to 10 months. Well, 9 to 10 months, what does that really mean, guys?
It really means about 15 months.
That's right. So, and there's a lot to putting up a temporary facility, and throwing basic numbers. We're probably looking at $1 million a year if we're going to go into this lease world versus buy $1 million a year. So I don't know what, and we can obviously.
Then we may relook at it and use different funds so we can purchase.
I'd kind of fill them in on so let me ask you all this from a commissioner's court perspective. If we try and move into a temporary facility, what are you all thinking for a location? Because here's one of the things that I will tell you. If the location isn't right on top of our facility now, we're doing two things. We're making it extremely labor intensive, and then we're making it a serious security issue when we have, we'll just say 40 inmates and we just have 2 or 3 personnel over there, and we're using temporary facilities that we're
Yeah.
not used to. And I mean, we're creating a security risk. So
Are you looking at just doing a temporary facility for females?
yes,
Okay.
yes, but.
And that'll
from-
free up spots for males.
Correct, and it will free up a few.
Yeah.
I can explain that even better, because, but the one thing I want you to remember from us, from a law enforcement perspective, we don't see a female prisoner any less dangerous than we do a male. So, we have to treat them the same way, because believe me, there's a lot of women that'll kill you just as fast as a man will. And then the other issue that we have is we don't have that many female detention officers. So one of the things that Todd and I feel very uncomfortable about is having a completely separate female facility, which would be the right way to do it, would be the proper ways to have it separate. But when you do that, and all you have is majority male detention officers, you see the nightmare that we slowly but surely. So, cameras are going to be so important and all of those other things. So for that, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let the expert, the guy that knows how to run prisons and jails, fill you in on some of the blanks.
Regardless of the solution that y'all choose, be it modular leased facility,
That we choose.
well, y'all got the money. so-
Yeah, but you're the expert.
If I had my brothers, we would not go with the lease option. We would go with
Okay,
a hard structure.
well, let's look at that.
But I understand that may be an issue with funds.
I think,
Okay.
let's look at both.
Okay, the structure that we supposed to, this is a structure across from JP two, the gymnastics building is 100 by 80. And about 75 feet of that is pretty much open space on the inside, 75 by 75 actual clear space, unencumbered space. That would be large enough to put in 2 female housing areas of dorm style or barrack style environment. We have to add a mechanical room, pipe chase at the back side of it to plumb everything in. And set up your restroom and shower areas. We have to have at least, for every 12 inmates, you have to have 1 toilet, 1 shower, one wash basin. So, but if one of those goes down or malfunctions, then you got to move people. So you want to really put 3 in each so that you have a spare always go. So we've talked about housing 48 inmates, both minimum, medium, and max, so long as that their behavior allows for it in that dorm type setting. You'd have a solid wall down the middle, separate the 2 custody levels. You can house max and medium together. You can house minimum and medium together, but you can't house minimum and max by classification standards. So you have to have a barrier in between. That space already has office space and restrooms for staff, and could be retrofitted for visitation for attorneys and families fairly easily. It would be the hardened perimeter around the outside, which would be basically cyclone fencing and barbed wire, solid port entrance and covered entry for a van that could carry the food out. So we wouldn't put a kitchen in. We could prepare the food in the main kitchen and deliver food over there hot and still meet our standards.
So is that close enough? You're talking about?
Yes, because you can run or drive. That's because you could run there as fast as it would be, get in the car and start and drive around if you had an issue.
The jail standards ratio, staff to inmate is 1 to 48, but you need a control officer to control access in and out. You need a roper. So at least a minimum of 2 at all times, but more than likely you'll probably need 3 because you're going to have people that go out. So you're talking about 12 officers being added to staff that facility. That's a significant amount as well in salaries and benefits. From there, it's a matter of, it wouldn't be difficult to retrofit that facility. It's just that it has no air conditioning outside the office area. So it'd have to be added with heating and ventilation. It's tall enough that the lighting there you would be able to use. You wouldn't have to top the housing area. You could leave it open because the inmates won't be able to get to the lighting or the structure as high as it is. And you could probably easily hang air returns and air handlers across that to cool the heat. But you also have to purchase an emergency generator for that site as well, to keep it up to standard and code.
Will you make a list of what will have to be done for us, please?
Thank you, Tom.
So obviously, currently the facility is vacant, so I don't know the scenario or situation on that at all, but that's our, what we see as our quickest fix. Still gonna take some money on, and obviously, when you look on Land App or you look in the county records, it appears that that particular owner owns 2 pieces of property. There's another piece of property next to it that's vacant. We would definitely need that because we have to have a rec yard. And it would help us be able to create that perimeter. And since obviously the facility we all have now, you all realize the interior has the rec yard and it has a perimeter cover, it has a fence over the top of it where they can't crawl out. So the type of fence that is required is not going to be the most beautiful thing in the world. So we would probably want to pay attention to what we build. But that's just, trying to keep some cosmetics, not that the jails and sheriff's office try to look pretty, but and it doesn't matter to us, Judge, obviously, whether we use temporary facilities, but we don't have any place to put a temporary, meaning a mobile facility. Even if we do that, you're still going to have to buy that land. Okay, or and might still want to do an and/or, all right, but
There's not room between the jail and the county court law.
we can't. I don't think there's
Okay.
sufficient not to do 48 beds. And really, 48 beds is what we need to do.
The size footprint that we require was basically, best estimation I can give you is a 22-car parking lot square. So about the size of where the county court lot is. If you remove that, that would be about the size of the structure. The way those modular pop-up jails are done, you have several different housing units. They're basically housing and day room only. You have a separate shower area, separate trailer for showers and restroom. It's obviously it's been a useful solution for some, but we're talking about the Gulf Coast with salt air and hurricane force winds.
Yeah, we know that.
That's gonna be a problem, even for just 3 years. And that's why I would say, I'm not sure if that's the route you want to go. But obviously, I'll make whatever you choose work, whatever you decide. I'll make it happen. Are there any other details that I have lots of information, but I'm not sure you need to know all of it or want to know all of it right now.
I'm glad you said if the temporary is not gonna work. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a deal because we got that parking lot, new parking lot across over there. We could set something
We should do right over on the corner.
on the corner. If temporary would work, and I think that would be big enough to do that. We wouldn't have to purchase that building, but I mean, that's just an option. But
You know what you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
I'd rather own the land.
No, we do. We got a parking lot.
no, we don't.
Now, right now, it's not being used, but very little, simply because we're not having big courts.
No, yeah, we own that. We could set it on the concrete.
So that's an option too. So I mean, I don't, Captain, you research it, you tell us, here's what's gonna serve us the best for the price.
So in certain options, honestly, that piece of property I haven't even thought about.
I hadn't
So-
even to them.
So I sure don't mind us looking at the modular and just seeing what that option looks like. Because that is a pretty sound
And
idea.
it hits your centralization too.
Yes, and it keeps it
Yeah.
close to where I it's easy to move the food. It's easy for us to manage. That's one of the things I worry about also is just the
Yeah.
management
Yeah.
perspective that that Todd has to take on when you start dividing facilities.
I mean, Todd could have done this 100 years, but when you got a new place, I mean, a new area, it's just,
It all comes with bugs. You have to-
that's right. And the only way it's gonna come to, that's the experience
Would that be,
on the new place.
would that be faster, Sheriff, to utilize something like that instead of purchasing the building?
You know,
rehabbing the building?
hard to say. Chances are the probably yes. Here's what we're gonna have to figure out. And this is what I'm trying to think. I don't want to tear up a brand new parking lot that you just had built. We got to figure out how to get water, sewer and all that into it.
I think those utilities run, I knew I saw a gas main and stuff back to the back side of it, so.
Okay.
It had water over there as well.
That building did, yes.
So it shouldn't be shouldn't be an issue.
Okay.
The building you were looking at though, is that wind rated? I don't think it is either, is it?
So here's what I'm hoping. I can tell you that it was built after the county passed its wind rating
Okay.
requirements, so
Okay.
it should be wind rated, but and then obviously we definitely need to figure out whether a modular will be considered wind rated. And because we really wasting our time if we don't, because then we got to figure out what we're going to do with 40 inmates, every time a hurricane, because
Sure.
Wind rated, I mean, the typical design now is 120 mile an hour wind.
Right.
And that metal building was probably, I would assume, was pre-engineered.
Right.
And into that.
And then finance it.
And I think the modular buildings have to be designed to that also.
I think you're right.
But then you just gotta anchor them down.
It's like, that makes the difference.
Yes.
What about, this is just thinking out loud, I don't know how much trouble or money it would be, is to move to county court at law and put the jail, temporary jail next to the jail.
That would be ideal if we're going with the modular option. Simply for.
Well, that way there's not
that would
razor
prohibit the need
wire.
for,
On downtown Main Street in Anahuac.
yeah, you're still gonna have to.
You'd just be on a
Put it over
different
there,
corner.
you-
Yeah.
Right, but I mean.
But Heather's saying-
Down from the post office.
Ms. Hawthorne saying it's more centralized and it looks more natural than right by the jail, right?
Right,
And I don't know how much.
Well, it would be easier to man.
Oh, it'd be much easier to make,
Yeah,
that's for
yeah,
sure.
and I mean, labor cost is a lot.
Yeah.
And if it could just save one or two,
from an employee safety standpoint, that would give a response staff to get their other.
yeah,
And that would-
I mean, from that standpoint, it makes a
Anywhere
lot
else,
of
you're
sense.
talking 10 minutes to get staff over there.
But it's gonna cost a lot to relocate that county court.
Yeah, I don't know what
Yeah.
IT and all that stuff.
Just when this floats around, y'all just remember that wasn't the sheriff that's asked that, okay?
It's pretty close.
If you can, just check
I mean, it
that.
just makes common sense.
Yeah.
Check that parking lot over there and see what you think of that.
Makes too much sense.
As far as lead time, from the, basically, what would occur if you go with a modular option, for a lease option, we would have to pay them $5,000 upfront to draw up the 90% drawings. They would send that down here to the county engineer. The engineer would have to inspect it, make sure it's up to our code. And then once approved, put his seal and stamp on it, approving it. From there, it gets submitted to the Commission of Jail Standards for approval. Once they approve it, then y'all would draw up the contract. Attorneys would find out the terms and the details of the contract, lease agreement. From the day that that contract is struck, they start acquiring materials and appliances. There's a 90-day lead on detention grade fixtures. So it's 90 days before they even have the fixtures available to install, and they start construction. So it's about 8-month lead time. Barring no issues or problems with getting the contract signed and initiated. And site prep, if there's no issues there, such as flooding, acts of God, things that redirect our labor, our efforts, resources away from that. We're talking 8 months, best case scenario, if everything was perfect and everybody makes it a brawler. Beyond that, I'm guessing closer to 12 to 15 months, as you said. If you say 8, you're probably talking 12 to 15, because there'll be contingencies they're gonna have in there for acts of God and things of that nature. They would bring it down, they would assemble it, and they would use local contractors to tie in utilities, and also they would use local contractors to service the facility if necessary. They have AC issues as well. They would own the product, we would lease it for a minimum of 36 months. And hopefully that's enough time to get out of it and have a facility moved to.
But there's purchase options too, I'm sure, right?
Sir,
A purchase option also.
same regardless.
Okay.
Now you can
That's
get
gonna
extension
cost
with
by
the commission.
purchasing a temporary jail.
You got the,
Todd, is that the Texas company or is that the Missouri company?
that's the Missouri company. The Texas company hasn't got back.
So, and this may be a stupid question, but there's none out there already built. Or somebody had a temporary one, they built their new jail
They had
and they want to sell it, they, already,
the Greene County, Missouri facility, which is a temporary facility, so that's when they showcase. Has been, they're through their lease and they have it back. It's up for sale, not for lease.
okay.
And they triple bumped in Missouri. And TCS doesn't allow that. So that was a 108 bed facility. If you take out one of those bunks and drop it down to 2, it's a 54 bed facility.
That'd work.
It would work, it would meet our needs, but it's for sale, not lease.
That's okay.
How much they want?
Find out.
I know Tennessee's interested in it, and a few other places, so there's several different entities interested in.
Yeah, because we could get that quick.
I mean, we could sell it.
We could get it, that's right, then we sell it when it's done.
I don't know how you move it here, but we'll sure
Right.
check.
Oh, well, modular built, that's the deal, B. They're supposed to be able to break down.
Well, it may be in 2 pieces or 3 pieces or like these other
Or
buildings.
6 pieces.
I think it's 6.
Okay. Do you want to work on that?
I was gonna say the procurement of it, Sheriff and Todd, is it on a GSA? I mean, what kind of contract? And most of your stuff is on GSA.
Most of it is.
Yes, sir.
And I feel quite sure that if you're in the business of detention facilities, you're going to be on GSA somehow.
If you could send me some information on the company, we'll look into that and.
Well, if you don't mind,
and-
we'll probably start including you in on the.
Okay,
emails.
that'll work. That'll work.
Right,
We
that
can
way
get
you
going.
see the
Okay.
Trend change.
Yeah, I mean, if it would fit there, utilities, I mean, there's a base there. You didn't set it up, we get it pretty quick.
Anything else like
So,
that?
so one other question that I might have, Judge, is, or just an option for the county to think about is buying that property over there. Whether we buy that metal building or not, just that lot versus trying to destroy something, because we're gonna do, it's gonna be quite a bit of fabrication on, as far as the parking lot, your concrete, what have you, putting it over there. Would it just be easier to just buy another piece of property, even if you have to eminent domain it, to put in the vicinity of the jail and have something and put it there instead of disrupting what you've just built?
Well, we got the parking lot. It's actually not being used, so.
Okay.
Yeah, because, and it's gonna be a while before we have big trials. I mean, pulling juries out of West Park, I can see that going on for years.
You're saying if that building's available, we can get it. We could, and it'll fit that lot. I mean, that could help you on.
Yeah, we'll, Tom
When's
will have some
COVID
dimensions
gonna end?
tomorrow.
I mean, when's COVID gonna end? So.
Oh, I don't think it's gonna.
So if you got dimensions and the price, I mean, I need to call an emergency meeting because it is an emergency. We can do it.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. This second round of COVID has put this into an emergency because now everybody's full. Everybody is full. I don't know a sheriff one that has room. In fact, Newton County, if you remember, Newton County had a temporary private prison up there. I think Newton County is now trying to do it in contract with some kind of a jail facility, trying to open that thing up because they realized everybody's in panic for inmate space. But for us, it doesn't really work very well because it's so far. And so many of what we're holding right now are pre-trial detention felons. I call it like I see it. So much county court system moves people pretty quick right now. Our pre-trial felons is what we're sitting on.
Could y'all, I mean, we're gonna be in budget here for a little while anyway. I mean, could y'all find out something and come back and update us? And I think you.
Yes, yes, yeah.
You can use my phone if you
Yeah, we could find out.
That's an honor.
want. Yeah,
You know how to operate a flip phone?
Set another meeting.
I've been vaccinated.
So with that being said, thank you.
Bill.
We'll try and move forward. But anyway, I look at it, when Todd told me 12 full-time personnel, I kind of choked. And then I sat down and started trying to put the math to it. If it's a separate facility, there's just no other way to do it.
Right.
really, you know.
Yeah, she was here, sure. I mean, I know there's 12 new employees and that's gonna be a cost to the county. But when, and I'm gonna say it like this for this court, when in the near future we build the new justice center, you'll be able to utilize them, right?
Well, we knew, I mean, the judge and I had talked back, 8 years ago, that if we built a new facility, it was gonna take more personnel. We
Right.
kind of felt like we could get away with about 6 to 8. So, but as the county keeps growing and our court system keeps growing out, we've created a whole nother court. And so ultimately, yes. Now
6,000 new homes in my building.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Six.
Thank you, sure.
All
That's
right.
just one thing.
Now,
Yeah.
but put it in perspective though, the new jail will be a lot more efficient than the current jail.
Oh, absolutely, because we're going to, it takes a little more personnel because it is direct supervision. But direct supervision, you eliminate your fights, you eliminate so many different problems that we have that we wrangle with, people getting hurt and just tons of issues. They're just safer jails for personnel, safer jails for the inmates. Todd's been working in the business for years.
When you have your officer in the housing area, and they're assigned, and there's a staff present 24 hours a day, doesn't leave. You eliminate a lot of your vandalism and your maintenance issues and a lot of your violence.
Yeah, and you gotta remember, we're spending a lot of money now, shipping prisoners, bringing them back.
They're-
Housing them
we're finding
elsewhere.
out, I know we are.
So, it's,
And we looked at, I'm trying to remember different types of jails and the different ones where you got like the bullpen type in the center,
Yeah.
it's radial
Modular, or it's a
versus,
modular.
yeah,
So-
versus the one that you got like a
Tower.
watchtower type. Which one did we decide to go?
Kind of the modular style. It's your 48-bed modular facility with direct supervision, where you have a rover, but you have somebody in that 48-bed facility at all times. Now, your maximum, I think we've dropped it down to like 24, 36 per guard in maximum security. But maximum, and that's, so you'll know, that's probably one of our biggest problems that we're faced with right now, is that we do not have a proper maximum. Remember, that jail over there was never built for maximum security. Todd works through it, Larry Cook worked through it. But there's a big difference between a maximum facility and your medium minimum. And so it's all open bars. So our staff take a brutal, I mean, I can't tell you, I bet once a month, one of our staff is going to the bathroom, cleaning feces off their face, and where our people are, I mean, am I exaggerating, Todd?
Thankfully, it hasn't been that often, but it does happen.
And the reason is
And to Todd.
and to Todd, yeah, Todd. And part of the problem is because so many of our maximum security are some of our mental health issues.
Right.
And we don't have anything to do with them. They need to be at the state hospital. They don't need to be in our county jail. And they,
Well, if they tell me things like that, Todd, they definitely got mental problems.
that's what I was thinking, biggest issue.
we try to keep some of our stories in the jail.
And we may need, I mean, Billy and I talked about, there are mental health issues in jail, and lots of them.
Horrible.
So we should be funding more out of 091 health services on the jail side.
Well, when it comes to, there's no doubt, and I will tell you that if you look at our maximum security inmates and what it costs to manage maximum security side, what's about a third of them, mental health? So I think you can clearly justify using some
And they,
health service money.
as you know, when you have to do
Or you make another-
restoration, you have to wait sometimes a year before you can get them into a treatment facility. They're there 90 days. They get their meds squared away. They get them competent enough to stand trial. By the time we get them back, it's time served. So they've been languishing in jail for over a year. And we finally get them to where they can understand the charges against them. They go to trial or they get cut loose. Immediately they hit the street, they're off their meds and they're back. Start the process all the way.
All right, thanks.
All right, thanks. Todd, if you find anything out,
Thank y'all.
we'll
Thanks,
be here a
Ryan.
little bit. Thank you. Big man. All right. Don't you want to come up? Yeah, see if you can get this on phone. So Noah's with Capital Appraisal Group, who does our industrial appraisals. What's your last name, Noah?
Wilcoxon.
Thank you, Wilcoxon. We'd ask him to be here today along with Mitch to talk about inventory, inventory tax, how the inventory's come down, and just bring us up to speed on, because it does affect our budget tremendously. So we can learn a little more about how it's done. We're going to see if we can get Mitch on the phone. He was going to be here, but we couldn't.
This is Aaron from Germantown. This is Aaron. And especially for all the commissioners, I'll just figure you out. Hey Mitch, can you hear us?
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Hey, Mitch.
Hey, everybody, how are y'all?
Good, how are you, Mitch?
Good, thank you.
Okay, so we're about to get started here. We got Noah with us. And I'm just gonna turn it over to you guys.
Sounds good. We were, discussing this previously and that the fact that the values were down substantially in Chambers County for 2021. We were up locally about 340 million, but from the industrial standpoint in Knowles there, he'll speak to some of those changes. We're down about $900 billion. And so overall, we're down to, over $500 million from what we were in 2020. And so when we talked, Judge and Aaron last, you had mentioned that the commissioners may have some questions about that and kind of want some of the details. So with that, I'll kind of let Noel go down that road as far as the industrial. And then if y'all have any follow-up questions, I'm going to listen in and we'll go from there. Does that sound okay to you guys?
Sounds good.
Sounds good, Mitch.
Okay.
Right. As far as, as we start, I said, if you don't have it, I sent y'all an email with the evaluations. So
What's the link Watkins wants to tune in? Hang on.
Is that what you just said?
yes, sir.
I was looking for your old one.
Please call them.
Hello?
Hey, Nathan. All right, we're gonna try to get you a link, but for now, I got you on speaker on my cell phone. So we'll get you the link. Aaron's gonna send it to you. And we hadn't started yet. We had the sheriff first. We got Mitch on the phone and we got Noah with capital prices here. So, you ready? Go ahead, no.
Okay.
Is that microphone on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good.
Chambers County is a very heavily industrial area, and it's mostly on the Baytown and Mont Bellevue side of the county where your industrial is. Got a lot of industrial on the hill, you got a lot of industrial in the Baytown area, and both are growing. And they have been for about the last decade. We've had the economic meltdown, and now we've had COVID going up against industrial growth. And we've seen a little bit of the stuff that was planned on going in the Mont Bellevue area pull out and not be built. We've also seen a lot of the warehouses in the Baytown area. One, they've set up foreign trade zones. I think there's now 7 active foreign trade zones in Chambers County. So you've got inventory that goes from being taxable to being exempt.
And that's one way you get them here is by.
Yeah, it's
Bringing in that
an
foreign trade
incentive
zone.
to draw in new business. It creates growth of the buildings which are taxable here, even if they've got the foreign trade zone. But the inventory that's inside of those buildings is exempt. So you've seen a substantial amount of growth of the past decade here. But with the COVID event, it definitely impacted the economics worldwide.
Is that all of, in that I'm sorry, in the foreign trade zone? Is that everything that comes in there or just what's being shipped to certain areas out of this country? I mean, how is that? Is it?
For the foreign trade zone, it has to be coming in or going out of the country.
That's what I'm saying. How do we keep up with what's not going out of the country or what's coming in from other areas within inside the country? How do we keep up with that?
That's up to the warehouse itself. When they set up the foreign trade zone, the federal government inspects them and makes sure that they're doing what they're supposed to for things coming in and things going out. So it's the federal government that really keeps track of what is and what isn't.
So they've got
We
an
could be missing
agency.
something there.
They do, they've got a federal agency.
That's what I'm saying. We could be missing
Can I-
something there.
Don't mean to interrupt you, but while we're going to this, do you know about how much inventory was attributed to a foreign trade zone that we did not get taxed on?
I can find that out. I don't know right off the top of my head.
It'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, well,
Will. Because most of the foreign trade zones that I'm aware of that the county's done, and there's a few of them, most of them are not actually utilizable. I think there's only.
That's true. I wanna get involved here a little bit. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're right. There's a lot of areas of what I have been learning and speaking with the folks that represent these entities, is that they're becoming more sophisticated in their use of the foreign trade zones. They're starting to go to school on it, and they are moving some more products out of the country. And so those products that are going to be destined to be shipped overseas qualify from that federal exemption standpoint. And those can be more specific. I know that I had received a spreadsheet from him a while back, and I think he's having some trouble there with his connection. But I do know that we have some details on that we can follow up with. A little bit more detail of what kind of products, when,
Chambers
and
County
here
guest.
again, it's important.
I'm not connected to the Wi-Fi.
For what it's
You go to
worth, good
Chambers
or
County
bad,
guest.
we at our end have to rely a lot on this self-reporting. There's no great system of checks and balances on this type of property from a local standpoint. We can go in these warehouses. In fact, Nolan and I visit most of these properties every single year, and we look at this stuff. But when you go into these 800,000 square foot warehouses, we still have to rely on them a lot to tell us what's in the foreign trade zone, what's not, who's got what here. And we work very diligently with them, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing with what's in those wells on the hill. We've got to rely on our corporate partners to, be somewhat forthcoming. And I guarantee you there's folks in our community that think they're not, and so that's a struggle that we always have.
Okay, yeah, that would be very interesting if you get us those numbers back, because it might affect how we treat some of these foreign trade zones and how we set them up.
I agree.
That sounds good. Yes, I agree with that. Because y'all have one role in it, and then we kind of react to what the entities that are moving the products around tell us, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
And
we,
you guys have been, and y'all have been very generous in granting it to some abatements to kind of, encourage them to bring their business to Chambers County, and in return, I hope that they'd be very, you know, at least somewhat honest with us about what they got out there.
Okay, thank you.
Noah, did you get connected?
I did.
Good.
We'll see if I can get you an answer on the foreign trade zone.
Okay.
Is there another question you want me to answer in the meantime?
I think I was on one, so wherever you were. You
Okay.
can.
So, you know, like I said, you guys have been blessed very much over the past 10 years, and this is just one of those hiccups. We don't expect it to last forever, but who knows how long this COVID event's going to go on for. So during COVID, some people thrived, some people failed. And you've got both of those scenarios going on. But nobody's really willing to invest in new stuff or drawing in a lot of inventory or anything like that when you just don't know what the future holds. And that's what we're seeing in Chambers County. Overall, with industrial property, year on year, you expect it to go down. We appraise on the cost approach, and with the cost approach, unless there is growth, you expect the values to drop year on year because you're depreciating it every year. With the business personal property, you kind of expect to lose some and you expect to gain some. And we had a whole lot more losses this year than we had gains, significantly more, obviously to the tune of almost $1 billion, 930 million. So,
and that's primarily in inventory.
most of it is in the personal property. Inventory is part of personal property. I think it was about 600 million of it was the business personal property. I think roughly 450, 500 million of that was inventory.
You said 450 million
Somewhere in that range.
was personal property.
Personal property was 660 million difference from last year.
Well, that's way more than half of the overall loss then.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
That.
And 450 was,
And there was some depreciation on some of the, I think Noel can speak to some of the, real property assets, experienced a little bit of loss in value due to a,
Right.
age, life, depreciation. They're getting older, and, we've been so accustomed to new projects coming online virtually every year. If you look back even to 2013, we had $6.7 billion worth of net taxable value, $5 billion of which was industrial. Today, we're up to, even with the loss, we're up to $7 billion. So we've been accustomed to some pretty phenomenal growth in the last 6 or 7 years, and very steady growth. And I think we're still going to see that with the prices turning around. I think that I heard that ethylene was way up the other day compared to what it was at this time last year. And so the demand for these products is going to go up. We're cautiously optimistic that 2022 is going to be better than 2021. And is that a fair assessment, no?
Just with ethylene, or?
No, just overall.
I have not looked at what 2022 is going to look like.
Okay.
But we're making up some of that too on the 381 agreements with those tax abatements that we've entered into over the last several years.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that's been puzzling me and is Mont Bellevue went up. They're very heavily dependent upon the industry and the inventory in the salt domes. CCID number 1 went up, and they encompass all of Cedar Fort. you know, and they're very heavily, I mean, so the two parts that you identified a while ago that we rely on, that makes up a huge amount of our tax base, both of them independently went up, but yet we came down.
Do they piggyback off our free trade zones?
No, there's county specific.
That's what I'm saying. If they're not in that,
But I don't know, we got any free trade zones in my building.
The
Now, but
foreign
I
trade
can
zones.
speak to that.
well, they don't have any,
When you're
so I
looking
mean,
at the values on the certified value spreadsheet, for example, for Barbers Hill ISD, when you see $11,768,000,000, that's their total appraised value, which doesn't include any Chapter 313 agreement reductions for the M&O component of their tax rate. That doesn't include, so that if you look at the same number for the county and added in
Eric, can you
the
put that?
amount of appraised value that is abated, the county's overall market value is much higher than Barbers Hill's value. It's just that what you're seeing on that spreadsheet is just their INS taxable amount of value, not their Chapter 313 value. It's a much lower value. So there's the primary difference in the big number is that we're looking at for the county net taxable. It doesn't include the exempted abated value. That number's higher.
So Mr. Gore, I want to,
The total appraised market value of the county is still higher than Barbers Hill's total appraised value. It's just that your number reflects the net taxable, where theirs reflects the net taxable just on the interest and sinking fund part of the tax rate. And smaller jurisdictions can be up compared to the previous year, as in the case of the ID, because of the new construction.
Okay, according to
What that says is that the county value would be down even more if it wasn't for the new construction.
No, I hear you, but I've been looking at spreadsheets and what I cannot find, and I haven't seen yet, is where our abated taxes rolled off. And I showed that number being close to 262 million.
Talking about one that,
The abatements that rolled off in 2021, yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't have that information. That's something we would have to follow up with, but we can certainly find that.
so Mr. Gore, I would like to address what you had said about CCID number one. I'm showing that in the business personal property category, they lost 192 million between last year and this year.
So, and what does that reflect?
That reflects the business personal property,
I mean,
industrial property.
I know, but kind of, the depreciation,
No, that's gonna be inventory losses primarily.
So they just had less inventory in the warehouses.
okay, so business
Like
personal
Walmart, for
property.
instance, could have been, they've been down.
Yeah.
You know, that would make.
I got you. So it's inventory.
Right. And then Mont Bellevue, did you want the school district or the city?
My Bellevue's the city, Barbers Hill School District. Don't get them mixed up.
That's-
Both of them were Barbers Hill when I grew up.
They're both blue.
Yeah. Nathan, you still there?
In the city, I'm showing it was a 200.
Okay.
$254 million loss in the business personal property. So pretty substantial.
it is.
And you know, you add both of those up, you roughly $450 million just between those two jurisdictions. That doesn't include what happened in, you know, Goose Creek ISD or Baytown.
Yeah, this,
He sent you the other two.
okay, yeah, this spreadsheet that I've got, the summary, it shows City of Mont Bellevue mineral in industrial was down 150 million. So I guess that 250 million in the inventory, and it was probably up some on.
We had some areas that were up and some areas that were down. The real property was up in the city of Mont Bellevue, and the personal property was down very significantly. So real property was up 108 million. Minerals, we were fairly close. We were within $1 million. And then for the J category, which is the utilities, we estimated a little, or year over year is up about 11 million. So overall, down 135 million year over year for the jurisdiction for industrial and mineral property.
So Nathan Watkins and I were talking a couple weeks ago, and do we ever audit any of these folks? Ever go in there and say, oh, here's what you said you had? Did we audit that, or is there, or we just
Well,
take their word? I mean, I don't.
I think Mitch should address this, but number one, there's not enough staff to do that. And number two, we don't have the authority.
Well, I don't, yeah, I mean, we could all pony in to Barbara Hill, Mont Bellevue, the county to do an audit. So, I'm not worried about staff, but we do not have authority to do that.
No, sir.
I think that's a closer way of viewing it, is that, we've had this discussion a lot over the years with various, different parties, and, property tax code really doesn't speak to, taxing units, hiring appraisers. It's one of those things that kind of why appraisal districts were created to begin with. And, certainly we could look at maybe figuring out a strategy where the appraisal district spends more money on this effort in order to try and make sure that we're doing a good job. But I don't think there's any legal frameworks where the entity could do it, whether a city or.
Well, I want to talk about yeah.
If going to do that for years. And, but once we start looking at the legal framework for it, it just doesn't exist.
Well, if the appraisal district can do it, I mean, it benefits all the.
Yeah, we can spend more money. Yeah, that's for sure.
If it's part of our abatement, I mean, all these companies have flow meters where this stuff is going into these wells or coming out of these wells, or, I mean, it's kind of like I'm moving this stuff. They have bill of ladings moving this stuff in and out of these.
They know what's in it.
They know exactly how much they got.
That's what I'm saying. If we implement this as part of our abatement agreement where you have to furnish X, Y, and Z at the end of the year.
Well, I think they're furnishing that now.
Huh?
That'd be great.
But I'm saying, I mean, even in the salt bones, I mean, my insurance company audits me at the end of the year on my fuel because they base my exposure rate off the number of gallons I purchase. It's the same way with industry. They can furnish us this stuff as part of our abatement agreement or something. I don't know. I'm just throwing something out.
No,
there.
I agree with you, and I like that about the gas. I've been thinking about it for some of the other things we do, especially when we start talking about foreign trade zones. You know, like we did today, you know, we approved one substitute, them guaranteeing 50 million a year, a minimum of 50 million a year in inventory.
Yeah,
You know, and I think, you know, as we go on abatements, that's something we need to start working on more.
I think so.
Hey, Mitch, and some of these abatements that you've looked at, I mean, like Billy just brought up, we had a good example today, but are some of these totals, if they're of inventory, whether it be 50 million units or 150 million units or whatever kind of product they have, it's a box, pellets, or whatever, are they presented by the company?
Sure. No, can you speak to that?
Yes, when they render it, they render volumes and what their intended market value is. So they do give us the information on what they do have when they render.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes we've been successful, Commissioner, in the past. We have been able to independently verify, especially on the Hill. Say, for example, Al Noor over at Enterprise Products in the past has actually given us some detailed information about people that lease space from them to store their hydrocarbon products. And we've been more or less successful at getting that information from folks like him as the years go by. Some years he's been very forthcoming about independent, not just Enterprises products, but Shell and Valero and Exxon and whoever. And I'm not sure he's still providing that check and balance to us. No, has he done that this year? Or I just don't remember.
No, he's hesitant to give out any of that information anymore. When he did that,
Is that something, he got in some problem with his own folks there?
he did. About 10 years ago, we got all that information from him. He told us exactly who had what, and those companies jumped all over him. So Enterprise.
That doesn't sound good.
No, Enterprise. Well, and when you're talking about Shells and Exxons and really big players and they've got a lot of lawyers, that'll make you back down real quick. So he did.
But it
provide
doesn't
that.
sound good that they didn't want that information getting out.
Well, I think, there's competition and
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I can too.
so, there's more implication there than just property taxes.
Gotcha.
One monkey wrench I want to throw into your plan on getting the volumes from these guys is that there are 2 lien dates that you can use for inventory, and that's September 1st and January 1st. And so if you just get the volumes on January 1st, that doesn't do us any good,
It does.
because there's people that go for January 1st and there's people that go for September 1st.
So what are we getting from them now?
We get what they're rendering as of the date that they've applied for. You have to apply by July 31st if you want a September 1st inventory.
That's easily manipulated because
It absolutely is easily manipulated, because if they choose September 1st, they
They
move
know.
everything out by September and then they've got it on January.
Shoot, if they got 2 facilities, they could just work.
And we know that they do that.
Okay.
But there's nothing we can do about it because they're not
But
doing
the law
anything illegal.
provides that they can do that, and they establish their business model in such a way that they move the product out before the statutory appraisal date, whether it's the September date or whether it's the January date. It was curious that the legislature created that September date some years back. It's because they got a lot of pressure from the industry, and the industry is very good at
Lobbying.
persuading them to build the law in such a way it helps. I mean, I can't put it.
Just so counties don't lobby, it's okay.
Yeah. Nathan, you've been listening. You got anything?
Yeah, so, I want to pay as little taxes as I need.
No,
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Nathan. Yeah.
I don't begrudge industry for wanting to pay as little taxes as possible. Me personally, I want to pay, as few taxes as I can too. And they've definitely got some things weighted in their favor, but I do want to make sure that they're not just cooking the books. And, this year, one example we saw was Shell had $100 million in value last year, and they reported $0 this year. They're going through a sale. I understand it, every dollar you can save and not have to pay makes your books look better, and PenX is going to pay a higher price for that. But, if they are in fact moving their inventory out and it is an interstate commerce, I'm okay with that, but I want to know that they're actually doing that, and they're not just saying they're doing that. My understanding is we've got 600,000 MCF or whatever the volume of natural gas liquids is stored on the hill. If it's empty on September 1st and January 1st, that's fine. But in my mind, all the brine ponds should be empty as well, because it takes brine to move that natural gas liquid out of those caverns. So we ought to be able to look at an aerial and say, hey, yeah, we started getting product out of the caverns on this date. Brine ponds ought to be empty. Okay, well, prove to us. I don't have to know what is actually stored in there as much as I would have I want some level of comfort in knowing that the volumes are at least accurate as a starting point. So if 10 years ago, everybody got, in a bind for reporting actual storage and all of that, and industry's always told us, they don't want us to know exactly what's in the pipeline, exactly what's in storage. We can sign, NDAs. I like the idea that the court has of tying it to tax abatement agreements in the future, but the additional constraint that we're operating under with property tax caps makes this even more important to the county and the city moving forward in my mind, because we have a fluctuating tax base. Before, we've set aside funds to get us through years like this when values dropped. And then whenever all the value came back, if it was at 8% or 10% or 12% or 4%, we just took it back whenever it came back. Well, now we're capped at that 3.5% rate on how we can, on how those values can come back on our books. So, this year preliminary values in Mont Belvieu were down 500 million or 15. And that looked like that was going to be a 5-year, to get back to even was going to take us 4 to 5 years, depending on property tax caps. So, industry should expect, based on the constraints that the legislature's put on us, that we have a more vested interest in knowing exactly what's being valued on the Hill and other areas of the county. Because we're limited now on how we can provide the services that our residents and taxpayers expect.
I would say that
You're right.
anything that you guys can do to help us do our job better is very much appreciated.
Yeah, but we may need to know what that is too.
Yeah.
Right.
What can we do
That's late on BJ.
to help you?
Volumes
Did
are not,
BJ get in?
Well, I think Nathan had a very good point. I mean, simply looking at the aerials and doing it, maybe we set up the fly on
That's a good idea.
January 1st and in September 1st and get some aerials on them days. I mean, it makes sense.
Mitch, anything you can think that could help the commissioners
Well,
court?
yeah, some of the things I've heard mentioned, I agree totally with what David said. Those new constraints on the way you calculate the tax rate, it kind of changed the landscape a little bit for you guys and makes it hard to get back to where you were, even if the values come roaring back because of those constraints on the tax rate. I'm open-minded to these ideas. I personally never thought about the brine pond scenario where an obvious change in that would be if the product comes out and the brine goes in. That's just kind of a good common sense way of looking at it. And I don't think anybody who has any sort of a way to persuade them to be more forthcoming, whether it's with the language in an abatement agreement or any other mechanism, we're always open for any ideas that might help. So I think Noel will agree to that. And when things are going really good, you don't think about some of these things quite as much as you do when they drop off some. And Noel did make some good points that hopefully this year is just a sort of an anomaly with the pandemic, but it doesn't seem to want to, every time we think we've got it headed in the right direction, it comes back on us. So luckily we're not locking anything down presently, but there are indicators that things are going to improve, and we're hopeful that some of these projects are going to be more robust as they move forward based on the, supply and demand. But yeah, any of you guys that know anything about the movement of these products that might differ from what they're reporting to us, anytime, year round, we'd be open to that and receptive to that. I think the fact that we're talking about it together is important, and Noel and I would be willing to spend more time with you guys because you actually spend more time with these industry partners than we do. By the fact that y'all negotiate these agreements and stuff, we only spend a few weeks each year with them. We go visit their properties. We go on tours of their properties. They show us what they've done to do. We have these general kind of high altitude discussions about what's going on in the industry. And we visit the warehouses. But again, I think it's just a little sketchy for us what they're reporting sometimes in these wells.
So y'all can help us help you by telling us what kind of language we put in a tax abatement to help you out.
yeah,
Well, and
that's something we'll look into.
Yeah, y'all think about it, get back to
Probably
us.
see some legal.
And
on that, too.
that's going to address.
Abatement agreements over the years, and I think maybe one advantage that Noel and I have is that we do have a good network of friends in other areas. It's just that Barbers Hill is so unusual when it comes to that specific property type. There's very few places with underground storage.
Yeah.
There's other types of underground storage that's out there, but these specific type wells
Are unique.
few and far between. And so that's why we are the NGL capital of the universe,
All right, Nathan.
Yeah. So the other thing too, the tax payments will definitely help us moving forward and get us a seat at the table. But another thing too, we need to be thinking about is I've sat in these meetings with industry and love hearing the stories about how the Salt Dome was developed and all the technology and everything that took place to bring us to where we are today. But, I've heard examples used that you can put an Empire State Building in a salt dome and it wouldn't be exposed out of the ground. To me, I'm just a layman and just using common sense here. And brine ponds was just one analogy or one measure that I could think of. but also it should take a considerable amount of time to empty the hill to greatly swing and affect volume and taxable volume and value on the hill. You know, I'd like to understand, is that a month-long process to empty a cavern out? Is that a 6-month-long process? And then is the pipeline infrastructure even in place to handle all of the volume on the hill? If we took it all out of the ground and put it in interstate commerce, is the actual pipeline capacity even there? And I feel like what I'd heard earlier when I was on my phone was we don't have the authority as taxing jurisdictions to audit, but if the appraisal district does, if we can put the funds together and find the right company to perform an audit, I would hope that the appraisal district would support that from Barbers Hill, the county, and the city. And I don't know that I heard that earlier, but
yeah, I don't think there's any doubt we would support that if we could find the proper way to approach the problem and be able to. It's all about the information, and you're 100% correct. But when you start talking about the size of these salt domes, if we can calculate the volume that they should be able to hold and multiply it by the number of wells that's out there, and they're all different sizes and shapes, but yeah, a lot of them are plenty big enough to hold the Empire State Building. And then how much is brine, how much is gas? And you're right, it's clear that you can't empty these things out like filling up your car with gas or something. That there was lots of time involved in food and stuff, right? And sometimes it takes my understanding is, Noel can correct me if I'm wrong, more than a year to leach out one of these wells to get it even ready to hold a product. But it still goes back to this concept of self-reporting is really the only tool that we employ right now.
Can you go back and audit Shell?
I'm sorry?
Can you go back and audit Shell?
I don't know. No, I mean, are you acquainted with what he's talking about?
Yeah, he's talking about the huge, what, 100
million down to zero,
I think it was 160 million or
160 million.
Did they move it out or?
I sent Al Noor an email and I don't think he ever responded.
I bet he did.
So.
Yeah, so we asked about it. We haven't heard.
But it was Shell.
Keep the pressure up on that.
Right.
I've got this other situation going with Al, so I'm going to be interacting with him in the near future, and so we'll keep the pressure up on all of these subjects. And we try to keep the pressure up all the time. No pun intended, but it's
Good one.
it's just one of those things that's a constant work in progress for us, and we know that those things are not ever empty.
No.
Yeah, and we got BJ Simon joined us. BJ Nathan Watkins is on, and then we got Mitch on the phone, and we got Noel with Capital Appraisals. And we're talking about, of course, the loss of inventory and what we can do to make sure we are getting all that we should be.
Right.
Understand.
I think, just as you had mentioned, you're well aware of peers and other appraisers and other jurisdictions. It's the same thing for us. We hear horror stories from Texas City and Valero and Shell and Deer Park, talking to the city manager and the mayor's there as well. I mean, we have a very amicable relationship with our oil and gas partners. And we don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. But at the same time, they shouldn't have unfair tax advantages that our homeowners and residents don't. Whenever we have in Mont Belvieu and West Chambers County, we're seeing valuations increase 10, 15, 20, 30% in some cases. We understand they're in a depreciating market, but if the storage is there and the volume's there, or it's in a warehouse, they need to pay for it. And they shouldn't be able to game the system, which ultimately is to the detriment of our residents and homeowners, and puts a greater tax burden on them just because they have certain advantages. So that's all we're looking for in Mont Belvieu, is making sure that we're holding their feet to the fire. They know we're watching, and we want to continue to work with them and be business friendly long term. And I know that's the goal of the county and the school district as well. We wouldn't be who we are today without industry being here. But at the same time, we should have the right to ask the questions that we're all proposing here today.
Yeah, and on top of that,
we've given them very lucrative tax abatements.
Yeah.
What's the-
I mean, it's, you know, if that's all we did, you know, it means a lot.
what's the-
Yeah, there's a lot of folks out there that, they view that whole abatement issue as some sort of, corporate welfare, but as Nathan put it, we've been very fortunate to have overall good corporate citizens in our community. We've worked well with them, and we do not want to do anything to jeopardize those relationships because it takes years to cultivate them. And so that's always in the back of our minds. But again, if they're moving stuff around and being disingenuous about it, that's something that's important to us. And you mentioned the concept of independent experts, and one of the things that's frustrating to Noel and myself, and we've both been in this industry a long time. I've been in it 39 years. I was in Texas City when some of those nightmare scenarios happened. I've seen that with my own eyes and Valero and that sort of thing, BP, and having to fight and spend lots of money on lawyers every year. But what we've encountered is that a lot of times the industry's best experts already work for the industry. And it's hard to find engineers that aren't with one of these appraisal firms already. It's hard to find independent engineers that aren't already working for Shell and Exxon and Valero and all of them. So that's kind of one of the frustrating things is that when we've gone into protracted litigation in other jurisdictions, as appraisal districts, the best engineers in the country were on the other side of the table. And that's something that we deal with as assessment professionals in Texas, is that those guys know who these folks are, the people that are writing the articles, that are publishing the textbooks, and that are the recognized leaders in that side of the industry already work for Chevron, Phillips, Exxon, and Shell.
That's right.
So that's something we struggle with.
All right. I got a quick question though, of the losses that we saw on the Hill this year in the volume. How much of it was based on volume versus price?
No,
Price was definitely down. I would say price was down about 30%. So.
And what percent were we down?
Probably about,
I'd have to know last year.
we were down 800, we're now 900 million.
Right, but that's
Insurance
across all industrial and
Yes, that's everything.
Okay.
I'd have to know the previous
sorry.
inventory number.
So that might have been, that was a large portion of it, that was on price.
A good portion of it was
Sure
price. There was definitely volume difference. I mean, when Shell pulls out $160 million of inventory, it's not going to be replaced.
I think that can be audited.
I did send Shell an email. They confirmed that they had zero, but they're going to confirm what they already had. So I tried to go to a third party source and go to Enterprise
yeah,
directly.
no, I'm going to be visiting with Al in a few days, and I've made a notation
Follow up with that.
to hit him up about that again too.
I also want to address the volume issue. We don't have a problem with getting the volumes in these caverns. So they file reports with the Railroad Commission, and we do have volumes as of September and as of January. So we're not really hurting for getting volumes. It's more a matter of who owns it, because it's not Enterprise that owns all the stuff that's there. Enterprise stores stuff for Shell, for Chevron, for Exxon, for everybody else.
So that's how Enterprise fits in with the Shell.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was curious.
Yeah, and yes, you can look at the brine ponds and see roughly how big they are and that kind of stuff, how full they are as to, how much is going in the ground. But we get those reports, so it's really not that big a deal to find out volumes. It's more a matter of ownership.
But we're not, or are we? I mean, if the taxing entity is in Chambers County, we're taxing them. If they're bringing product from the outside entity into Chambers County,
Right.
How are we tracking that?
But it's gas that's owned by different companies
That's what I'm
being
saying,
stored.
and they're outside of the county,
Yes.
okay? How are we tracking that to tax them? Is that what we're doing, or we just taxing Enterprise?
So we're asking Enterprise who has stuff stored there, and we're sending out renditions to those entities.
Okay,
The foreign ownership entities almost never give us a response. And I don't know how you would even go about getting them to pay their fair share of taxes.
So we're just not getting anything from it.
Yeah, we'll send out a rendition, but nothing ever comes back.
In
Who's
the
holding
past,
it?
some of us were very creative about trying to capture some of this value, and we would send out notices where we speculatively thought somebody might have had something, and it never seemed to work out as well as it was envisioned when we, say, for example, we felt like Shell was not being forthcoming or lying to us. We would just slap a value on a notice of appraised value for a couple $100 million and send it to them. Well, I found out that's called official oppression, and so I got my hand slapped for doing that in the past. Because remember, every activity that we're doing is being audited by some entity, mostly the comptroller of public accounts, but and even, you know, the other side will come back at you pretty hard if you start doing the old throw it up against the wall and see what sticks method. So we kind of pulled back from that. That was something that we tried a lot of years past. Works occasionally, but it's a little bit more frowned upon today than it was, because, you know, my instinct would be, as an assessment person, is to just go ahead and send them a notice anyway, and then make them prove they don't have something. But that technique's kind of been taken away from us.
Well, who's the custodian of it? Did they not have any responsibility?
Well, that would be Enterprise, and I'm not sure, I don't know the answer to that question.
So
What about you,
Enterprise's responsibility is to tell us who has stuff there, not how much or what it is or any of that, just who has ownership of stuff that's stored
I
there.
guess that's where
So-
the responsibility ends.
So if Billy has stuff stored there, it's up to him to report how much.
It's up to him to report how much, but it's up to Enterprise to tell us that Billy has stuff there.
So if I got stuff in my warehouse and I say it's not mine, it belongs to a brother-in-law, I'm not responsible for the taxes.
If it's not your owner, yeah, if you're not the right owner. So we have that situation. We have people that say, no, that's not mine, it's theirs. And so during the protest period, we will leave them on and send a notice to the new one and wait until we figure out who actually claims it. If the person that they pointed to owns it, we'll take these guys off the roll and it'll be their responsibility. So that scenario happens quite often, especially with the warehouses.
Well, we should some way of attaching
Interesting.
Yeah.
main energy.
I also
It's
want
an eye
to,
opener, isn't it, Commissioner?
I also want to address another thing. Y'all had asked how long it would take to empty the hill. It would not take very long. If they didn't have anything coming in, they've got 24-inch pipes and 36-inch pipes that are circling all the wells that are on the hill. They've got 72-inch pipes that come in, which means they could reverse that to go out. They could empty the hill in a week or two.
That's what I'm thinking.
It would not take very long at all. And as they develop the technology, they get bigger and bigger pipes that go down in these wells. They're pretty significant. When you get a 24-inch pipe going to a well, you can empty that thing in a hurry.
Big
So-
pipes and big pumps.
It's more a matter of how fast they can pump the brine in to get the stuff out. It wouldn't take very long if they didn't have stuff coming in, but they've got a lot of gas coming in all the time. So it's not a likely scenario, but it wouldn't take very long.
All right.
It does take years to leach those pits out, but you're getting water in to dissolve salt and take the salt water out. And that does take years.
That's what I'm saying. Most of these companies are stocking inventory, getting ready for winter. You know what I'm saying? January 1,
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting into quote unquote Texas winter. These companies are filling these salt domes and looking for sales.
Yeah, but they're also playing games with September 1st versus January 1st.
Yeah.
We
that's
had
what I'm
a
saying.
company over in Houston, in Harris County. They got caught because they did it the wrong way. They put all their stuff in on September 1st and then they moved it on January 1st to the other place that was taxable. And they got hammered. And Harris County wouldn't let them out of it. They screwed up and they got
They paid
caught.
double.
They paid double. They paid for the same inventory twice.
I hear it happen all the time.
Oh, it does happen. And God, that feels good when it does.
Yeah.
But you know what happens the other way more than it does.
Right.
You know,
Well, without a doubt.
so And-
Or otherwise, that law wouldn't be in place for them to play that game.
Right, and there's nothing we can do about it, because it's legal.
Has anybody challenged the September 1 and January 1 dates at the legislature and say it's a annual average instead of?
Nathan, you want to contact our state rep?
Well, I mean, he's the champion of the people. I mean, it seems like he'd want to address that.
I imagine it would fail before it even got started.
Big lobby.
Yeah, industry's gonna hammer that real quick. I mean, they're trying to get.
Also, one interesting thing though that came out of this last session is the fact that they were allowing these 313s to sunset. Somebody got a bad enough taste in their mouth about that subject in the legislature that I was surprised that there was so much, so many legislators letting that thing go away. And it may be time to resurrect it, or a lot of deals have to get done, but so few. What you have is you have a situation where all over the state of Texas, you have what I like to call professional jealousy on the part of legislators that sit out in less wealthy districts and see us on the Gulf Coast as some sort of beneficiaries of all this industrial property, and they're delighted to take away some of the tools. And so I worry about 312s in a similar way because they come up ever so often. I don't know when 312s are going to come up again, but we always need to be aware that the tides change in the legislature. It's something that seemed like a really great program for school districts. The 313 is going to be allowed to fade away because a lot of people see us as rich and gritty coastal communities that have all the industry and they don't. In fact, Quayar out of the valley said that he guessed that kids in 313 districts were more valuable than kids in non-313 districts. They were making comments like that. And so, we don't want to poke the legislature too much, I guess is my point when it comes to those sort of subjects. It might backfire on us.
Yeah, but the ability to do 313s and 312s and 380, 81, that benefits the whole state of Texas. We can't do these type incentives. They're going to Louisiana or Arizona like we
Bingo.
had
Yeah,
Oregon
they're going to New Mexico too.
and New Mexico.
Yep. I think we're losing our battery plant to Arizona.
We did.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I
Wouldn't because
think
of
it's a power
taxes.
grid thing, though. You guys know more about that than I do.
Was that because of the 313?
No.
No, it was power.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there were maybe some other things, but we got a wrap up meeting with them sometime next week.
All right, well, very interesting stuff.
We're working on it.
Thank you, Mitch.
Yeah, I've learned a lot.
Hey, I do have one question on overall tax values. What's looking at this summary of the values, the entire appraisal district has a total of 11,834,000,000, and the county's got 11,033,000,000. What's the difference of about $800 million there?
That would be the appraisal district doesn't offer any exemptions. That's just.
No tax banks.
The appraisal district is just sort of a code that captures all of the properties listed on the appraisal roll. And it's not affected by over 65, homestead, disabled persons, and all
Okay.
those sorts of things. So that difference in that appraisal district value and that county or some of the other jurisdictions is there's no notations on our summaries necessarily for exemptions.
All right.
The major difference would be the appraisal district, since it's not a taxing entity, it's not affected. You're looking at a net taxable value for the county that subtracts all of the exemptions, whereas the appraisal district value itself would reflect those same exemptions.
Makes sense.
Because we don't offer any exemptions. We don't tax anybody. That's just on there. I actually don't know why we put it on there, to be honest, because since we're not a taxing authority.
All right, Nathan, you got anything else?
No, I don't have anything else. But for the record, I'm not afraid of poking the legislature.
Yeah, and I'm not either. BJ, anything?
No, Judge, I think I concur with Nathan. Something could be addressed. I mean, we've seen various approaches that are used for industrial district agreements with the city of Baytown, for managing, for those folks who manage other people's inventory. And so there's a rational basis to explore some of those options.
Good, yeah, we need to.
That applies to foreign trade zones as well.
We appreciate any input that you may have.
Yeah, if the city, the county, and the school all get on the same page, we should be able to get what we need.
Hey, BJ, before you signed on, we were talking about foreign trade zones. And I had asked a question about how much inventory actually was in foreign trade zones last year that, was not taxed because of that. But I don't know how many are actually operating. Do you know how many foreign trade zones that are actually operating currently in Chambers County?
Yes, Ravago has an active foreign trade zone. KTN has an active trade zone. Floor and Decor is now applying for a foreign trade zone as part of their approach. And I think I mentioned that to you and Commissioner Hammond yesterday, that the county is going to have to revise the policy, because if they're incentivizing physical facility and we need to balance that with our inventory that's impacted by foreign trade zone. So currently, in the case of Floor and Decor, they have inventory in FTZ 84, Harris County, and they anticipate moving that inventory over to their Chambers County operations. So when they approach the county for a letter of non-objection, it would be recommended that the county enter into a pilot agreement, just like all the other taxing entities, to balance that. And I've asked IMS Worldwide to provide a list of current foreign trade zone participants, and then going to cycle back with Mitch and his staff to look at affected inventory, what those levels are, because I would suspect that would be the case with Ravago as well. And when the county entered into or provided the letter of non-objection for Ravago's FTZ, there's a stipulation there that there is an existing agreement, namely the tax abatement agreement for phase one, that can be modified to reflect changes in FTZ impact.
So we can offset that with some pilot agreements.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. We'll present that to court in 24.
Thank you.
All right, and you want to have anything else? Nathan, do you have a minute to talk about it? 2-year plan we discussed earlier in Commissioner's Court.
Yeah, Judge, I do.
BJ, you want to hang on? BJ?
Yes, I'll hang on.
Okay. No, I think we're done. Mitch, thank you. Thank you, Noel.
Hey, we're always here if you need us. Please pick up the phone and give us a call.
We'll do it.
Great hearing from you, Mitch.
All right, take care. All right, I got it.
All right, let's take 5.
Thank you, Judge.
Nathan, you and BJ just hang on. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
We'll never Tommy.
Yeah, Tommy's here. You just don't see him.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Tim. Tell me when you're ready here. All right, court come to order. Don't do that to me without letting me know. Court come to order is 3:25 after a break. After break, we still have BJ Simon, Nathan Watkins on. Nathan, we discussed how bad we needed to do a 10-year plan. And I know you had discussed it with Tommy. So you want to kind of fill us in on what you're thinking? You're muted, Nathan.
Thanks for the reminder. I almost have that down after a year and a half of doing.
Yeah, I know.
But we've done a lot of planning, spent a considerable amount of money here at the city on developing different long-range plans. Just one of the ones that has served us best that I was talking to Tommy about was our 10-year financial plan. And essentially what we did is we take all of our known values, a lot of the same stuff we were talking about earlier with Mitch and capital appraisal. And then we have to add in all the value that we get from our 380 agreements and other revenue that we generate, create a master spreadsheet for all of that. And then our tax rate here at the city is broken up. It's about 50-50 between maintenance and operations and interest and sinking. And once we take a very conservative approach because of what we were just talking about. We do have a volatile tax base that can fluctuate. So we only take known value that's on the ground today that can't go away. And we've actually are considering after this year building some new parameters into that where we would like to get where we don't even count the storage value or the inventory value into this 10-year financial plan. So that can fluctuate as much as it wants or as much as it's going to without affecting the long-term health and our ability to deliver capital projects. And then back to once you get the plan developed, you can project your revenue, you can project tax abatement agreements rolling off, value rolling in, depreciation. You apply that to your interest and sinking side, and you come up with a debt plan. And then with your debt plan, and once you know how much taxes you can dedicate each year to interest and sinking and issuing debt, then you come out with your 10-year capital improvement plan that says over the next 10 years, conceptually, we're going to build these projects based off the needs of the city or the county. We obviously did the city here. And then we publish it, we adopt it formally at the city council meeting, and we refer our residents to it as a tool. Hey, what are y'all looking to expand drainage wise near where I live? Well, hey, here in the capital plan, we've got $20 million dedicated to drainage in the next 10 years. It's going to hit these 4 or 5 areas, and the capital plan is always changing and evolving. The CIP, what we're going to actually build based off how the city continues to grow, but it all starts with a 10-year financial plan. And you can use that as a tool to guide you to be able to answer a lot of questions internally and externally for the organization.
How long does it take to put something like that together on the financial side?
Really, it's the speed of getting it put together is going to depend on how fast we can obtain all of the information from the various departments at the county. So it's taking known values, which won't be that hard to get because we can work with Mitch's office to get a lot of that. It'll be going through all the tax abatement agreements and building a master tax abatement schedule, which BJ and his group or somebody at the county may already have that.
BJ's got most of what you're talking about.
Yes.
Layer in that back end to the spreadsheet, looking at all the revenue that's coming into the city, doing some trend analysis on it.
County.
What's that?
You said city.
Sorry. And looking at all the revenue that comes into the county, and then just really building the spreadsheet. I'm thinking it's probably a 40 to 60 hour project, depending on how long it takes to put all the material together, really. Once we have all the information, then it's just really sitting down and hammering out a big spreadsheet.
Okay.
So you got a consulting company that would do that for us?
Yeah, I have a consulting company that I've done. That's pretty common. A lot of city managers consult around the state on various projects, and so yeah, we could do that and run it through my consulting company, and Kayla and I could build that for y'all. And
So once you got the revenue side, that's building your revenue side. Then I guess on the debt side, that's going to be a function of rates and how they vary and how long you finance it out.
Well, really what it is, so we've adopted the philosophy here, and some of it would take, interviews and this kind of process with the court, is we've adopted the philosophy in the city that we wanted to keep our tax rate the same. And we wanted to build as many projects and as much capital as we could without increasing our tax rate. So as new value comes on and new value rolls off, you look at your interest and sinking side of your debt and what it's going to take to service that. And that's how you plan it. So if you have 2 or 10 cents available, that dictates and drives how much debt you can go out and get. And we do take a conservative approach to that. And we can take whatever standard debt issuances the county may do. For a long time in the city, we only did 10-year debt issuances, was as far as we'd go out. We've changed that with the amount of growth we've got, and we've extended that to 20 years. And I believe the plan we have now assumes a 3 or 3.5% issuance rate, which obviously we're beating that. The last debt issuance we did at the city was under 2%.
What was ours?
So, wait,
Yeah,
what was it?
1.7.
1.7.
Yeah,
Right.
that's great. It's great. It's basically free money. And then too, whenever you have this plan as well, maybe you decide, hey, we want to move some of the debt up and take advantage of lower rates. And we're going to go ahead and instead of issuing $10 million this year, we're going to issue 2 years worth of debt and we'll do 20 million. But we just take very conservative, if it's going to be a 20-year issuance at 3% rates, we build that into the debt service. And it's ends up being a long range planning tool.
Something we need desperately.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of other studies that this kind of opens the door to. Another one that I've recommended that served us well was a facility study. So we went around and looked at, all the growth that's coming to the city, staffing levels, and what facilities we were going to need to build to house the additional staffing. And that's why we're building the city hall. And it's a chance, really, I see the real value in it for the court to come together with all the department heads. Everybody gets input in your capital projects or your facility study. And then you sit down and create those additional plans and projects. And it creates a roadmap internally and externally for the county and the staff. People know what to expect. And I think that's what has helped us in issuing COs here in the city.
I agree.
100%.
So Nathan,
What we need.
you're gonna come up with a proposal?
Yeah, we can, we'll send a scope and a proposal over. I would recommend an hourly not to exceed. I've talked to Kaylin a little bit about it. Both of us would bill out at $200 an hour, which is a pretty standard, I think, consulting rate if you looked at your engineering rates. And then not to exceed $25,000. If we get it done sooner, it'll be less. But if it takes longer to get the information and put things together, we may have to come back and say, hey, look, this took longer than expected, and it may be a little bit more, but I don't foresee that happening.
Yeah, because you're gonna have a lot of that at your fingertips.
Yeah.
You guys done a good job working there and putting a lot of that together.
Now that's just for the revenue type side of it, right?
That's correct. So I went back and looked at what we paid. We hired an engineering firm to do our CIP study. And it's very robust with maps, preliminary engineering estimates based off values, which, today, who knows? But we paid $65,000 for our CIP study. I built the first one here at the city just based off of estimates. But I think that's an additional study you would consider looking at doing in the future. But I think once you know your debt capacity, and if you're going to be, so our last one that we paid $65,000 for was the development, 10 years, around $150 to $175 million in debt. I think you make that determination on whether or not you want to hire an engineering firm to do that, or how far you want to carry that based on the total amount of debt that you plan to issue from the long range financial plan. If it says that you're going to do $50 million over the next 10 years, well, that money is going to be much easier to plan out because it's smaller, potentially.
But I think we're gonna have an idea of how much we need to do over the next 10 years.
Yeah, I think once we just get the financial side of it, I
Yeah.
think we know, I think we can put
I
our.
think so too.
Put the projects together.
Yeah, I think we can put our projects together without much.
Yeah.
You know, outside input, you know, I think we know that as well as anybody.
Yeah.
We go through these budget workshops, you know, annually and we get everybody's wish list. And
Yeah.
so a lot of that's already at our fingertips.
Yeah. So yeah, it's about just putting it on paper and getting everybody to agree that, you know, conceptually, this is what we're going to build over a 10-year period. And we've prioritized these
Right.
capital projects to be done in the, you know, near future, short term, intermediate, long term.
I agree. And like you said a while ago, it has to be adjusted from time to time.
Yeah.
To fit your
Right.
needs, but
Do you visit it every year at budget time, Nathan?
We don't update ours every year. You almost need to with the amount of growth we have going on. So we formally adopted ours, and then we may substitute projects in and out every year. So because once you have the plan too, what it allows you to do is we'll start doing preliminary engineering on the projects that we know we're going to issue debt on the next year. We'll try to get them to 30 or 60% to get a better idea of the actual cost on those. But then also whenever we issue the debt, the residents and the taxpayers aren't waiting for, you know, an entire 12-month design schedule to come down the pipe before they actually see dirt turning. So what we like to do is, hey, this is conceptually what we're going to do next year. We may have a water line project or a drainage project that gets substituted here or there, but for the most part, we know that that project is going to get done. So we're comfortable putting the dollars in design now to get that project off the ground. And worst case scenario, if you know that that project is going to take place because it's in your 10-year CIP and you have to postpone it, but you've already done 30% design on it, then you just stop design for a year or two and then pick it back up whenever you pick that project back up.
another thing, I think we would end up shifting some of our projects from capital. We're doing a lot of projects out of capital, out of our general fund now.
Yeah.
That really should be on the INS side. It
Yeah.
should be on our debt side and stretch that out. And so I think we'll probably end up seeing some of that M&O go down and, you know, the INS go up a little bit.
Especially whenever you can borrow money at 1.7%. That's basically you're building it.
Yeah, it's no brainer.
Yeah.
So okay, so we know in 3 years, we're gonna have a big influx of banks.
Yep.
But we want to get started on our jail,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like ASAP.
Okay.
So, do you go ahead and do your bond?
So what we've done is if we know we've got a major project, and I'll give you an example for us as a wastewater treatment plant, it's going to be a $30 million project.
Oh, we're talking about 100 million.
Okay, say it's a $100 million project. So that $100 million project is going to take probably just say 12 to 18 months to design, to go through the entire, get all your construction drawings ready to go out to bid. So say next year you have a debt issuance of $10 million. On a $100 million project, 10% architectural fees, you probably have $10 million in design fees, but they can't get all that done in 1 year. So you could break that out over roughly a 2-year period and say, hey, we're going to issue $5 million and start design this year. And then next year, when we do a debt issuance, we're going to issue another $5 million to finish design. And then in that third or fourth year, when we know we have capacity to deliver the $100 million project and do the debt service, then it's ready to go. You issue the debt and you go to construction.
Okay, so you either do a CO, you go to your general fund reserves, something for that first 10 million, and then you go to bond. You go to vote for a bond because we're going to have to bond.
Yeah.
That's the project.
Yeah. Well, and you can issue bonds for design too. I mean, we just set aside.
Now, you can pay yourself back if you used your general fund surplus.
Yeah, you could. Yes. Yeah. When you issue all that, you can just pay yourself back.
Or we could do another CO.
Yeah.
But you know how we get hammered on those.
Now, if you went out to vote, and don't laugh at me for being so stupid here, but let's say it's $100 million. And we know we're not going to, and the construction is going to take 2 or 3 years. Can you, and you don't want to raise your rate. So can you sell half of those bonds in the first year, the second half, and the second year to keep your,
Rate flat.
So you're saying you go ahead and get your approval from
You
it,
go ahead
maybe,
and get your approval.
maybe
just
you
don't
sell them in
bonds.
3 years.
Yeah, you sell them in 3 years.
No, I like that idea.
No, you can, and that's where taking the 10-year plan and knowing what capacity you have, and then taking your capital projects plan and marrying the two, that's where you decide on exactly how you're going to fund those projects in your CIP too. So you've got different funding sources that you incorporate into your CIP. So at the city, we do cash projects, and we typically do around 10 to 15 million a year in cash. And then we're averaging probably close to $20 million now in debt issuances. $100 million project's a big project. You know, that's a expensive project to fund. So probably would have a tax rate increase, I imagine, but we'll know that whenever we get in there and after we build the plan. But you can plan for it over multiple years to try to keep the impact on the taxes to the voter as minimal as possible.
BJ, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, thank you, Judge. I think it's an excellent idea. I mean, typically counties don't have CIPs, municipalities do. But the framework that Nathan's talking about would be essential, particularly given the roll-on values that are going to be coming on. That's been presented to court for consideration over the next, I guess, between 2021 and 2031. Essentially, on average, the county is going to have approximately $940 million in value rolling on per year. You know, so there's a gap there, but starting in 2024, you know, that's what starts.
Yeah.
And so the CIP framework is very efficient and allows for you guys to prioritize and align debt appropriately, as Nathan has mentioned. I think it's a great idea.
The other side of it
Nathan,
too.
if you had a voice like his, you could get a job broadcasting or something.
The other side of it too, and I don't remember if Commissioner Combs or Judge, which one of you mentioned this, but using your cash right now doesn't help you on your property tax caps. The higher your INS is, the 3.5% cap doesn't affect your INS.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we'll look at and consider and work with you on is these projects roll on and you bring value on. If you issue debt in the same amount, and this is conceptually, if you issue debt in the same amount of value that you're bringing on in new projects, you can keep your tax rate the same and you can protect that from the 3.5% cap, which we know new value doesn't count, but it's still, there's still some question to be answered whether or not, you know, tax abatements at that size is that new value and how that's going to be calculated. But you can be more strategic utilizing the INS side of your tax rate because it's protected from the tax caps.
Yeah, and we need to do that.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Don't say it out loud and try to take it away.
Yeah, well, no, they caught wind of it this year and buttoned it up a little bit, but we did it here last year. Our bond issuance for MB Link was being funded or being paid. The debt service was being paid out of MB Link. So what we did last year, because we exceeded the 3.5% cap, was we just moved that bond debt back into our tax rate INS side, and it kept us under because our debt issuances were higher, and it kept us under 3.5%.
Hey, Nathan, is that the only example of revenue bonds you use? Use revenue bonds, the MB Link revenue?
Yeah, that's the only one. That's the only one we've done.
Yeah, that's something that we started some dialogue pre-COVID about looking at special purpose districts and other sort of revenue frameworks for the county. And you know, as far as the courthouse project was concerned, and we have to take that back up. But curious how municipalities and units of government can use revenue bonds to finance projects. I know Lee College is very successful in funding deferred maintenance and repairs using revenue bonds.
Yeah, and there's a lot of companies out there that are pretty creative in helping with that too. They'll come in and you can guarantee the debt off the revenue that you're going to generate from the project. And it seems to be a successful way to to deliver more projects. We just haven't had quite the need here to go
Understand.
very far down that path.
But something to look at, for sure.
Yep.
All right, you got anything else? Any questions?
You gonna get something together for next court?
Yeah, get us that proposal, Nathan.
Okay, I will.
Make sure you include George in it when you do.
Okay, I will.
Order the product next quarter.
Thank you, Nathan.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, can you have that done in 2 weeks?
Yeah. All right, we'll do it.
50 hours, I mean,
All right, Nathan, thank you, Big
Thank
Dave, we
you.
appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
we'll
you.
see y'all.
Take care. All right.
Okay. And we learned a lot tonight.
Yes, we have.
All right, Chelsea, congratulations on the new interim HR position.
Hello, Chelsea.
Okay, so Chelsea, you're up.
You know, that's. the
Chelsea
hot seat.
Crainer, interim HR.
We call that the hot seat.
Well, I'm not asking for money.
There you go.
Turn your microphone on, please.
Yeah, we want to pick you up the record so we can go back and say, here's what she said.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So I am looking and proposing that we compile vacation, sick, and personal titles to be converted to a PTO, a basic PTO policy. So what I did was take the vacation policy that we currently have based on years of experience and kind of combine the hours that they would receive for vacation, as well as what they would receive sick leave for a year, and the 1 8-hour personal day that they get a year, and combined it all and divided it by 26. So they would actually technically be working and earning all this PTO on a biweekly basis. I have set a cap based on years of experience as to how much hours that they would get per year. So that's what the top part is, based on years of experience or service for the cap, how much you would earn per pay period. They would start earning it on the first day of full-time of employment, but they can't use it until after 90 days of employment. Plus, we also added in that they would be able to use, per se, borrow 16 hours worth in advance if they needed to. Somebody has a vacation scheduled and they know they needed 40 hours, they don't have enough, they can borrow up to 16 hours. But they also need to note that if something happens, they resign, terminate, anything like that, before they are able to work and earn that amount back, they would have to pay it back on their last paycheck.
So they signed something saying,
We can, or we can just make it plain in the policy. I figured if this does go through and we reestablish the policy, it would definitely be something we would push out so that they would have to read it and sign to say, yes, they understand what's going on.
The personal day or whatever, is that mental health or is that mental health day or what is that?
It's just classified
Is
as
there a
personal.
different- the mental health?
No, this is a personal day.
Yeah,
period.
What does PTO stand?
Paid time off?
personal time off
for? Oh,
or paid time off.
I never had that. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, so I calculated it for sick leave wise, within a year, we get 8 hours per month, so that's 96 hours a year that they're gonna earn. So based on years of service, this 96 hours plus the 8 hours of personal, that's how I came up with the figures.
Okay, so when you convert,
Mhm.
say, January 1, so what does Aaron have January 1?
So for instance, I did mine
Okay,
just for spite here, 202 hours, 0.75 hours of sick leave is what I have in the bank currently. 76 hours of vacation plus my 8 hours of personal. That would make my total 286.75. Well, based on my years here, I'm in the 5-year to 10-year bracket, so my cap is 224. So since I'm over the 224, I know I just put a year limit. If we want to shorten it, we definitely can, to say that as of 1/1/2023, if I haven't used the difference, which is 62.75 hours, I'm going to lose it. So they're constantly rolling over. There is no carryover
Okay, so you
request
don't-
anymore.
you don't lose it, you use it or lose it.
Right,
Yeah, I
correct.
think it's
So
like-
you're constantly at the cap unless you use it. If you use it, then yeah, it will give you some per pay period up to your cap based on years of service.
So we talked about like on the scenario, Chelsea would have 62 hours, that's, over her cap. We thought, okay, you give them 1 year or 6 months or whatever, you can use that to get below your cap, then you're good, but if you don't,
Well, yeah, I think you give them a year.
yeah, it should be clean time. All that, those hours.
Is that just gonna happen for 1 year though? I mean, when you.
Just to
Yeah.
get below.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
yeah,
management nightmare.
that
After
transition
that,
point.
you will always be at the cap unless you use it.
Okay, okay.
So,
But you will never go over the cap. and it
so
will
there'll never
always
be
go
any
over.
vacation carryover?
Correct.
We
So
don't
it's
want
all-
vacation
right.
I know.
That would be
Not
getting rid of.
vacation carryover
Mhm.
at
And,
all.
So we don't have to worry about sick leave?
Got smaller.
right, and that way, for HR standpoint, this would be so much easier to keep up with on timesheets. Either you have it or you don't. I'm constantly having to call departments and say, hey, so-and-so, you don't have enough sick leave. What
Right.
else do you want to use instead? That would eliminate that.
It's just called one thing.
Exactly. This would still go
So,
on an anniversary.
And the sheriff's
basis.
doing this.
I would say, yeah.
The sheriff,
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it, well, the first plan was to, everyone starts in January, one start date, so you get this big bucket of time off or sick time, whatever, and you can divvy that up to the entire year. So with this, it just keeps rolling, but it shouldn't, I talked to them about it, and we probably talked a little bit more, just to kind of confirm the transition period stuff, to make sure it doesn't hurt him or anything or anyway, but he seemed pretty open to the whole idea of it.
So this is where they could bank what they had and then use up any extra.
I thought Leisure was one that mentioned to start with.
Well, it was, but it was looked at.
It was-
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So you take the policy and you make the changes to it to incorporate this?
Yeah, so that would be deleting the vacation, the sick, and the personal policy, and then putting it together for PTO.
Okay,
policy.
so
So you would do that? And let Ashley review it and then bring it back to court with a good explanation like this?
So nobody will lose their vacation.
You better repeat that louder,
Right,
Commissioner.
He said nobody lose their vacation
exactly.
or the
Yes,
other job.
because it's already in there. It's all lumped together.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. I want to make sure they understand. So there's a concept of it, when you lose vacation starting January 1, you won't lose it. You'll get that lump sum. You can bank this amount and then use the rest. Then next year, when you get your new vacation, you'll still be at the max, plus you'll have that other you have to use within that year frame.
Yeah, you'll still have your
Or you will
vacation,
lose
sick,
it.
1 year.
1 year.
1 year.
Thank you.
And
And it helps.
For the month of December, but 1 year.
All right, it's gonna help you out tremendously and as well as a lot of
Well,
others.
it's just gonna take getting through that 1 year.
That one
Yeah.
year.
I think it'll help
So
eliminate
just
them.
didn't
I
they
agree.
bring something just a couple
Saying
of
So
months
it
ago?
wasn't
Yeah,
school,
don't
right? There
they-
wasn't all
yeah,
this.
There's a lot of
They
people that
changed what-
take
what
vacation,
you
you're
skip
very
that.
sick.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It would have been more.
Too many is-
So this would replace what we,
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's
Great,
no.
great plan.
So what did we do,
three
Les?
consecutive days of sick
Yeah,
leave
so
or
it
sick
was
note, none of that.
move everyone to a January 1st anniversary.
But did we approve it? I mean, what?
yes, they did, they
Yes.
approved it,
So this would replace.
they just go away. Cause that transitioning into that one would be a bugbear.
Mhm.
And I wish I could say I totally understand this, but I don't.
The bottom line is they say it works.
Yeah, that's my takeaway,
It
Judge.
kind of looks like the corporation I work for, painfully close.
Well, and that's what
I mean,
said.
you know, I get like 8 weeks vacation because of the time I've been there now, that I get X amount of sick days, but they don't call it vacation sick days. I got X amount of days.
That's
Yeah,
it.
PT.
That's,
Well, that company I work for, I got the money that comes in and the money that goes out, if there's any left over, I get it.
Well, I get.
And you get to go on vacation if you don't have anything.
Yeah, if I don't have anything else to do, right?
All right, Chelsea, thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Well, this will be on next court.
Yeah, we can make it
And it's effective.
January 1st. Yeah.
Okay, so we probably need to visit me and you in here in a minute after we get through here.
Okay.
We'll holler at you.
Just call me.
Okay, do we have a list of stuff we want to discuss real quick?
What else do we
I
have?
think I wanted, and I talked to Aaron about this here, I wanted to go over the AMDD deal.
Yeah, we can
They had, that's Anahuac,
Yeah.
Municipal Development District, and they are proposing, they sent us a deal, they're wanting to contribute $150,000 and have us match $150,000 out of our hot funds to build the splash pads here in town. So
Big water bill.
We talked about that.
I've sent Trinity Bays what we pay for the one in Winnie to the city council over here, and they're looking at matching the rates for Trinity Bay. So, and AMDD has actually indicated that they would assist on the water bill.
Should pay for the water bill.
So,
They should pay for the water bill.
Do we have an idea what TVCD is?
I had it and I sent it to him. I mean, it's not tremendous over in Winnie.
Can we get Kirk to see how much they use? I think Kirk's got a good balance on how much water, whatever he uses.
Yeah. It's like I get all the time, is we're always doing stuff for the east side. We don't ever get shit over here.
Yeah, that's
Well, I mean,
exactly.
I mean, you know,
they're
it's just-
contributing a match of $150,000.
I understand, but we're still contributing too.
I
I understand, but you're asking us to contribute too.
Yeah, and I mean, we can use that money within that facility, so I mean, I think it'd be a good deal.
And I think we need to, I know we've got some hot tax and, you know, I understand the 20 million. But there's lots of things, like some of the stuff for mental health in the jails. I'd like to see a budget on that, and, you know, we've got hospital district looking at it. You know, it just seems like it's just a money tree, but that money tree ain't gonna last forever. You know,
No.
we gotta-
Yeah,
Also,
none of
yeah.
that comes out of hot fund.
Yeah, it's different, I'm sorry, it's different funding.
Oh, this is, no. This is-
No.
This is a hot fund. I mean, it has.
That's Parks on the Water.
Yeah, so anyway, I mean,
I guess from my mindset, I could see 150,000 going on some ditches right now.
You can't use it.
I know that. I'm just thinking money.
And the good news, yeah,
I agree with you.
You know,
trust me, I see it. I mean, heck, man, anyone realizes drainage, I mean, we're flat over here.
you got somebody wanting to put skin in the game, which helps.
It does.
I'm open to that. I think, would like to discuss the hospital district stuff a little bit.
So what if we budget anything out of the hot fund? Any projects or anything?
No, all the projects are pretty much done, like the parcel was a big one, it's been,
We
you know,
talked
which is
about
completed.
playground equipment at Watts Park. At a hot when Kirk was here.
Oh, yeah. That-
Yeah.
but that's-
I mean, it was a huge.
Yeah, them-
dollar
Well,
amount
who's doing that?
that
I don't know
maybe
that.
could be-
I think we'll have to phase it.
And we're looking at some boat ramps and stuff that
That's the grant.
we're applying for grant money, but they
So
would
there's a
take some
match.
matching funds probably
And we can match it out of there.
from.
So,
Yeah, but the overall thing is the promotional stuff that we, for the festivals, and we pay a little bit of money for historical, part-time for.
I think we're going to budget a little, some overtime out of there for parks mowing guys, because most of their parks are on water. And I think we could get by with.
I think we could get by with funding some of their regular mowing, not just overtime.
I totally agree.
well, you're not really funding overtime, you're funding parts. And we already are, we're paying for,
Mowers. We buy
we
mowers.
didn't, no personnel?
No, we don't have no personnel.
Okay, yeah, we need to look at that.
I think we could look at that as well, because majority of them are, that's what they do.
I agree, if it keeps raining like this, every park we got to be on the water.
Yeah. So is there a park on the west side that hot fund would fix that needs park equipment?
McCullough Park.
That's what I
Yeah,
was,
McCullough
that's
Park,
what
yeah.
I was getting at.
Yeah. no, we-
Hey, let's do something here, match at 150,000. Let's do something for 150 over there. I mean, that's hot funds too.
Well, okay, actually, Commissioner Hammond had been looking, he did this because I've worked on some other stuff, looking at improving that ramp that goes down in there, and it really needs to be improved.
So we can do that? Okay.
He was trying to get some grant money for that, which we might be able to get.
Right.
So if we budget 150,000, we can use it for ramps, for that, for matching grants, whatever, you know, we need to. All right, so you want to talk about the hospital? Jimmy, what we're saying.
I would like to discuss it. I mean, I don't know where everybody stands on it. But I know they're asking for $1.5 million in funds.
You know, I've been going back and forth on that, and I really sat down and started thinking about it real hard. When you pull it all down, they're asking that we give them X amount of money, $1.5 million a year is what they're really asking for. Of course,
They started out at 750 when Jimmy and I first met.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's where it was when I first met with. But basically what that would do, that would allow them to give a 20-cent tax cut on their ad valorem rate.
25. They're doing.
Well, I think this would be,
It'd be a nickel for every 500,000 that we cut.
right,
We give
and they were going to give a nickel on their own.
10.
10 cents on their own. Okay, so they could cut 30. And basically, it's going to be going the same service really that they're doing right now. They're not really improving any service. So at first I thought, man, that just don't sound like a good idea whatsoever. Because all we're doing is shifting the burden from one tax to another. But then when you look back at it, and you look at their rates, and you look at where they're really putting their money at and where they're servicing. They're servicing the west side more so than anything. Most of it's in the west side, central, and then a little bit over on the East County. And they are making up the differences with grant money and with the tax base. So it could be probably proven in that actually the taxpayers in Central County are subsidizing that hospital district serving the indigent in the west side and in East County. So that's how, in my mind, I could justify making that swap. It would cut the tax rates in Central County. It's not going to change a thing of what we're doing anywhere else. You know, people would collect more tax on the west side because there's more sales and more activity over there. But people in Central County shop in West County. I mean, they go to Mont Bellevue, to go to HEB.
That's right.
So, I mean, I don't know. That's how I personally could get my grips around about possibly going along with that.
Some amount, I don't know about the 1.5.
I don't know about, yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, actually, I would not be in favor of 1.5.
I don't know about.
Maybe 750, you know.
Or even $1 million at the most.
Yeah.
But not 1.5. But when you look at, take what you said was spot on, Billy, and I concur. I'm on the same page with you, and that's the way I see it too. And at first I didn't. Me and Jimmy talked about it, you know, and we visited probably 30 minutes on the
Trying to
phone.
ask him to send more numbers. I think the numbers he followed up with were better. And he explained the underinsured and the not insured, not just the indigent, because when he first threw it at us, he had it all lumped together. And he broke it out very good. 42% on the west side, X number of percent here, and a little bit of percent in Winnie. So.
You know, and this has nothing to do with anything, but when you think about, and when I became commissioner, and you really see what the citizens are paying over here in taxes with all the different taxing arms, any relief I could see that we could help them that wouldn't hurt us in our budget. And also help the citizens with the indigent citizenry. I just really want to do something, Your Honor.
Did we, Aaron, did we get a solid breakdown of what average comes in?
Aaron's got that implemented.
Yeah, I wanted to, we got an email sent to, I think
Last Tuesday.
4 days ago.
Last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in it.
So you got it.
Analysis
Dig
of-
back through there.
Yeah, let's look at it.
I think it was Thursday.
Okay.
Because I'm busy.
Okay, now like I told him, I think we could come to an agreement on something as a court, but I mean, and I think Commissioner Combs said something about, I mean, we need to phase it. We give them a certain amount and see what goes on. And then.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking, 750 in the first year, and then you see how it works.
So they show us how much, what the amount of services we were receiving.
Yeah.
We would be, I don't remember the number.
I mean, I think we paid them out of through the jail.
Yeah, the sheriff was saying.
200,000 or 250 or. whatever it was.
I can't remember the different aspects or items, but the sheriff is telling me there's some.
But did he come back with some clarification on the money that's being spent on West Side Indigent?
He did.
Okay.
That's where the 42% comes from. 42% of that is on the west side.
42% of what?
I'm looking for.
I got it too, I'm sure.
When did you send it there?
I'm gonna say it was.
No, you have what?
I'm gonna say it was
Oh,
Thursday.
I forwarded that to you, didn't I?
Yeah.
Billy, I think it was Thursday, the
Oh,
day
health
of
funds.
the pond.
Do what now?
It was Thursday because I ain't looking at this right now. I think it was Thursday the 6th.
Oh, this isn't, I don't think this is one I was looking for. I'm looking at what we got from, and I think I scanned that in and sent it to Jimmy. Well,
Oh, I
I
should
could
put
swear I
my
sent it to you, Mr. Gore. I don't see it.
glasses on.
I got it. I'll have to phone.
No,
I am.
I know, that's what I had. And it's pulling up.
You're right, you have it right, Jeff. I'm-
Propose the salaries and then we propose, we had a proposal, but I didn't have the tax rates just yet.
Did you find it?
Kind of want to wait and see what.
No, I looked in my sent emails and I know I sent it
Yeah,
to you.
you sent it to me. Because he,
Yeah.
Mike called me and I told him that you had just sent it to me.
We'll propose out, because she should be done.
See if we can get this thing
So,
I think we just need to come to an agreement on the amount and go from there.
I do too. But no, I mean, he did a very good breakdown and,
Yeah,
and I get it.
I don't see it.
We are-
Nelly sent it maybe, or,
Yeah, I
but I don't
sent
see
it.
it.
I don't see it either.
Aaron, you recall seeing it?
Let me see, I may have it saved.
Aaron, do you remember seeing it? I mean, it should include you.
So announce it at court. Which put it to the 31st, right?
Yeah, so- yeah,
Where
so-
did you send it to me, what, a week ago? Really?
Yeah, maybe a little over a week ago.
Everybody's gonna sign it, whatever.
No.
That's not required anymore by law?
It's, I don't think it's ever required, this is presented. I can say why I don't do that anymore. Somewhere else, but I don't, yeah, it's an email, it's their official email, I sent to them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is it right
And
here.
after that, it is 14 days.
No, it takes,
And
it's like pretty short of when you set the hearing. I think
You got that counter, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
So many emails. Take forever to scan them.
I know. I'll sit down now and we'll change to a game.
Yeah, so. So I did.
Hey, they play tonight. What time?
Next one.
6, 7.
Play 7. I think they're home still.
Did you find it, Bill?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it out to you guys.
So it's
I
5
said, I know you
days,
sent it to me
30,
because I've been looking over
And
it.
then you get.
You ever hear
you get
anything
10
back from
days
Todd?
for a hearing.
10,
Yeah, so, I mean,
Harris?
you can fit into this.
No, I texted a while ago.
So
Let me see if
anywhere
it takes place.
first 2 weeks of September.
We're still online.
Hell, they didn't get my
Yeah, and
text.
also-
We're just
It says invalid number.
But, you know, I'm in my mind, that what needs to be done when.
I guess he doesn't have, no, he did.
All right, I'll send it to you.
Well, it's gonna be quick for me to just look at yours because I've thumb back for days.
Yeah.
For Tyson.
Where did it go?
Bathroom.
I've got, I got a call here a minute ago, I need to.
I think we're done,
Yeah,
anyway.
we're done. I mean, we just.
Was there anything else?
uh,
Anything else?
No, we'll get told the tax rates this week and then the next court, but hearings, it should be a.
Did we get anything final from the sheriff association?
Hang on. All right, let's, since we don't have quorum, 4:10 PM, court's adjourned in executive budget workshop. Okay, go ahead. So